kick it off in this room then. So welcome to the first presentation for the maintenance stage today. So I'd like to welcome Daniel and Matt to the stage. So their presentation today is on less risk, more resilience, how competency assurance reshapes the future of asset reliability. So Daniel works for Applus. He leads the innovation and digital transformation team there. He focuses on applying cutting-edge technology to streamline inspection and asset management. He is a champion for practical solutions which ensure safety, efficiency and transparency across the critical asset infrastructure projects. And a fun fact about Daniel, he was once stuck offshore in Canada for 6 weeks because of thick fog that kept the helicopters from landing. And when he finally got back onto shore by boat, he was just in time to catch a music festival at LA. He went from survival mode to party mode in less than 48 hours. We'd like to welcome these two to the stage.
Thanks, Leanne, and thanks everyone for coming along. This is actually a nice sort of coming back event for me. It was 17 years ago I was first asked to present at Mainstream and been out of the community for a while, but my quick background, mechanical engineer by background, first sort of 4 years in construction side of things. And when I was 27 years of age, my baptism of fire was getting into the maintenance services side, so supporting sort of mining, energy and heavy industrial sectors with that whole service capability piece. And so what I'll sort of weave into this is some of that first-hand experience, particularly when it comes to workforce and competency management. And you'll hear from Dan as part of this as well. I think it's always important to have real tangible case studies to back up some of these components. So why are we here? We've got a big problem to solve around that productivity side. So this is some ABS data. Some of you may have seen this, some of you may not. Productivity's on the decline. So this is the most recent data. We don't have 25 data yet, but minus 2.3% for the mining sector, minus 1.7% for oil and gas, manufacturing essentially neutral. And a big contributor of this is the cost and the output of workforce. So not only is it having trained and competent workers, we've obviously got an ageing workforce, we've got a bit of a war for talent, and also wage rates going up in a lot of instances. So it makes it really important to be able to maximise our investment in people and also their competency as well. And in terms of asset-intensive industries, this is the world of pain that I experienced for 8 years firsthand. So I'd have to mobilise 50 to 500 people week in, week out to various remote sites from the Pilbara to South Australia, offshore oil and gas, etc. And it was a big challenge. Our main control mechanism was a gigantic Excel spreadsheet. And there was lots of manual data entry, lots of duplicate information. I had sort of a team of people in the back office that had to track all of this. And when we actually mapped it out, from the time we identified we needed resources to mobilise to a site or facility, it was 115 process steps before that individual turned up compliant. And that data would have to be translated across and manually keyed into about 5 or more different systems. And 40% of that process was people updating spreadsheets. So not the most efficient process. And then from a visibility point of view, I was 27 years of age, responsible for 1,500 people out there in the field, and I didn't have that hand-on hard assurance that everyone out there was trained and competent to be doing their tasks, which was a bit of an exposure point for me. Since then, the legislation's really been beefed up. The manslaughter legislation is now active in pretty much every state, which means as a manager or someone overseeing workforce, you can not only go to prison, but some significant fines for companies as well. So that's pretty real. And then inability to quickly access and mobilise qualified workers. So we do have a national skills shortage. There's a big pull for talent in multiple areas. The whole clean energy sector now drawing talent away, big investment in infrastructure and construction as well. And this productivity crisis is particularly evident in workforce mobilisation, and particularly those one-off projects and shutdowns and so forth, which often form a huge part of the maintenance budget for companies. And so what does the conventional approach look like? This is the world I came into. So you take a worker like Tom, let's just say that he's a contractor. He may be working across one or more service providers, so it happens a lot. On average, workers are kind of moving between 4 to 6 employers throughout the year, often changing their shirt for an extra $1 an hour. And they're providing all those licenses and information to multiple companies. Then those companies get that information, they then have to provide it to multiple sites. So in this case, where Tom's moving across multiple projects here, that same information will have to be uploaded 9 times, the same documents up to 4 times, and duplicated in terms of that verification process. So not only is that a time delay, it's also highly manual, not just for the employers, but for the sites as well. And that obviously creates data silos and risks to actually having that data out there in the field. And a number of companies I work with often say to me, hey Matt, if we actually had that visibility in the field of whether that individual was trained and compliant, we could have avoided that rework or that safety incident by actually knowing rather than trusting. So if it's all locked away in silos, it doesn't really help anyone. And so the new paradigm, and this is, we've had a few breakthroughs here, is essentially anchoring that data ownership and that control with the individual. So take this same worker, Tom, he still might be moving between multiple service providers and multiple projects, but that information only has to be uploaded once. And so through a permission structure, he can share that with one or more companies he may be working for as a direct employee. But equally important, those sites at which you work at don't have to permission to gather that information. And through the reminders process, he or his employer can upload renewals of certs, and then that always synchronizes with those other companies. So that's free for the individual. It's called a digital skills passport. And that gives everyone that real-time assurance that everyone's trained and competent out there in the field. This example, all he has to do is do the site-specific training rather than all the industry general training in terms of uploading that into other systems and capturing that. But what it also does is across multiple projects and multiple organisations allows them to simplify, standardise and share in terms of what is required for various roles across that workforce. So this is the way that MyPass is handling that. So obviously the single source of truth in the portable skills passport that I just mentioned before, but also customisable skills matrices. So what that means is organisations can either have a standard that they use across the sector. So for example, we've partnered with the Clean Energy Council to have a standard skills matrix across the entire sector, or organisations within a region, say a group of power stations or mines, can actually bring sanity to their contractors and say, you know what, if you're a mechanical fitter coming to site, these are the same things that you need. We're going to have the same validity periods on things like working at heights and confined spaces, and just demystify that for contractors that are moving around. So customisable skills matrices is a key part. The actual validation of the documents and certs is key there too. There are fraudulent certs out there, and they often go undetected. The statistic I'll show you shortly is 1 in 750 certs are fraudulent that our team detects as part of our validation process. So that means that the high chance that most sites out there will have at least one person that is doing a task they're not trained and competent to do. And we've seen that typically it's high-risk work licenses where they'll add another LF for forklift, or they'll take the liberty of expanding their working at heights certificate to push the date back. But believe it or not, we've even had a health and safety profession with a fraudulent degree from a fraudulent university to actually pretend they're even a health and safety advisor. So nothing's off the cards there. And what that does is it gives the managers, it gives those line responsible people that visibility in real time of that workforce profile. So this could be the view that someone like Applus can get of their own workforce, or it could be the site, the planner, the scheduler, the administrator, to actually be 2 clicks away from the information they need of their whole workforce profile against those skills matrices. And then the ability to drill down into those certificates as well, to actually see those validated images of the certifications and actually see that they're current and in time and in date. And so this new business model and industry collaboration is delivering some really tangible results. So obviously that mobilisation of skilled workforce is really key. As I said, shutdowns and projects is a really great use case of that, where there's a whole influx of workers that are coming to site that aren't normally on that site or facility. There's the improved cost and operational efficiency. If you can get those workers to the job front quickly, then you're going to get your work delivered a lot more efficiently. And I've been on enough shutdowns where the schedule gets thrown out on day 2 once they figure out who's turned up to site and whether there's enough coded welders or electricians, because it's all just potluck up until that point. And also the ability to scan those QR codes in the field to actually say, hey, we need someone that's got a forklift license. That wasn't one of the 2 things we asked for to trigger site access. Let's interrogate that in the field and get comfort around that. And the data, fortunately, backs this up. Obviously, you've got to have tangible value when you're deploying technology. So not only is it faster worker mobilisation, I mentioned that stat around the fraudulent certs there as well, that's real. Fill rates as well. So obviously, if you can't fill the amount of workers you need for a particular maintenance roster, shutdown project, etc., work doesn't get done, plans get pushed back, and it's causes a lot of rework there. There's also the compliance side too. So reductions in all injury frequency rates. Ultimately, if you've got workers that are trained and competent to do the tasks they're doing, they're more likely to do it well. They're more likely to do it in a way that doesn't cause them to get hurt. And also, we love keeping people out of jail there as well. If you've got workers that you're responsible for that are doing tasks they're not supposed to do, then that's a challenge for everyone. And in terms of the momentum, it's really important for us to have benefits, not just for the contracting companies, but also for the site owners or the owner clients as well. And really proud to be partnering with some of the biggest companies in the country right now, where being part of the system, part of this ecosystem, is a prerequisite for actually doing business on their site. So from Woodside, Impex to Shell, Chevron, BHP, they're all starting to lean into this now, and that network effect's starting to kick in. And really delighted to have progressive service providers like Applus and Daniel and his team who are embracing this technology rather than sort of seeing it as just another system that they get no value out of. So having that value for the whole ecosystem has always been a key driver for me when I set this business up, a bit over 12 years ago now. So I'll now pass on to Daniel that can give a real-world example from a service provider perspective, and hopefully he'll give you some more insights into that tangible value that this can deliver for the ecosystem. So over to you, Daniel.
So hi everyone, I'm Dan Lewis from Applus, Pacific, and I'd like to walk through a real-world case study on how we have tackled long-standing workforce challenges in asset maintenance using digital tools. Before we dive into the case study, here's a quick overview of Applus. So Applus is a global leader in testing, inspection, and certification. We have over 28,000 professionals across 65 countries. Our services span a range of high-risk, asset-intensive industries, renewables, oil and gas, infrastructures, automotive, where worker competency directly impacts safety, uptime, and reputation. We've operated in Australia for decades, including a 30-year partnership with Woodside Energy, which speaks to the long-term trust our clients have placed in us. Locally, our workforce must be highly qualified, mobile, and compliant across multiple concurrent projects. That operational complexity was a major driver in the decision to partner with MyPass. The need for real-time visibility into workforce qualifications, medicals, and certifications wasn't just an efficiency play. It was a critical control for reducing risk and maintaining our position as a preferred vendor. Now, this presentation is about how we transformed that process and the measurable impact that followed. It's a story of risk reduction, smarter mobilization, and how digital competency transformed our frontline delivery. Across our industry, whether you're in oil and gas or renewables, workforce readiness has become harder to maintain. Skills are evolving, compliance demands are tightening, and admin bottlenecks are growing. For us at Applus, this wasn't just inconvenient. It posed a direct risk to our ability to deliver safely and on time. At Applus, we operate in high-risk sectors where worker competency is non-negotiable. But like many in this industry, we faced 4 persistent problems: slow mobilization, heavy admin, static compliance checks, and low visibility of workforce capability. These challenges affected both safety performance and operational agility. Our response was to digitise competency assurance by partnering with MyPass. We centralised our qualifications, automated verification of competency, and eliminated the manual approvals for medicals and certifications. Instead of point-in-time checks, we've moved to a more continuous, real-time compliance. Here's what that looked like. Previously, our technical administrators had to review each certification manually, relying on paper-based records or digital files that had to be manually retrieved. But now it's streamlined, and MyPass provides us with the real-time compliance tracking, giving operations the visibility they need to make fast, informed decisions. It also delivers a higher standard of data governance, with far greater control over the personal information that's contained within the system. The impact was immediate and measurable. Mobilisation speeds have improved by 32%. Admin workloads dropped by a third. Training completion rates have risen. And we've responded to clients 15% faster. At an audit level, we save about 100 hours each compliance cycle by automating that certification tracking. This transformation has helped us win new work by becoming a more responsive and trusted partner. Because of the clear gains we've seen in workforce responsiveness and trust and workforce readiness, we now have an initiative to drive expanded adoption of MyPass globally. Other regions have seen what's possible and want to follow that lead. This is turning into a scalable international advantage. That's what started as a local initiative is now shaping to become a global best practice within Applus. Next, we're looking to deepen the integration by connecting MyPass directly with our learning management system and other internal systems. This means that we have a more streamlined compliance experience, reducing duplication, and we have a single source of truth for our competency data. And all of this supports growth, not just operational growth, but reputational growth. We've seen a more mature, reliable, and we're now seen as a more reliable and safety-focused partner. That's helping us win new work and strengthen client relationships long-term. So let's talk about 3 key lessons for a successful implementation. First, co-design with your people. The people in the field are going to know what works and what doesn't work. And if you include them early, then you'll create a system that works in the real world and not just on paper. You'll see those leaky abstractions before they appear. Communicate clearly with the workforce. Be crystal clear about data use, how it's protected, who sees it, how it's used. And when people understand the privacy and security measures in place, they'll be more likely to engage and adopt. And finally, expect messiness. Legacy systems often leave behind big gaps, duplications, and inconsistent record. But don't let this stall the progress, plan for it. Put processes in place to clean, reconcile, and validate the data as you go. And these aren't just tips for the tech rollouts, these are tips for how to bring the people with you. This case proves that digital transformation isn't about adopting new tools. It's about reshaping how we manage risk, readiness, and people. By making competency data visible, verified, and real-time, we haven't just improved efficiency, but we've elevated trust, reduced risk, and built a more resilient workforce. And the most exciting part, this is just the beginning of how Applus and MyPass is redefining the readiness in high-risk environments through data, trust, and transformation. Thank you.
So before we jump into questions, everyone likes free stuff. Come to the booth. I see the prize for going around every single stall's like $500 worth. Just come to our stand and you can get a $500 voucher. And some JBL noise cancelling earbuds. So come and see us when you come into the main hall on the left-hand side. And then those that actually want to see this in action as well, there's a 15-minute live demo tomorrow at 1:10 p.m. at Innovation Theatre 2. So feel free to come and look under the hood if that's of interest to you. So yeah, we want to allow plenty of time for questions. It's one thing for us to get up here and talk. We want to see what's pertinent and relevant to those in the room, so feel free to ask away.
Yes, let's get into questions. Right, big round of applause first for Daniel and Matt. Great to see the partnership between the vendor and the client. I might start if that's okay, before you all warm up for the next question. Daniel, I'd like to hear a little bit more about how you used the system and what your people had to do to interact with the system. I know you presented the employer-centric model there. Can you talk a little bit about how that worked in Applus?
Yeah, for sure. So for...
We must do speakers.
Yes, there we go. Okay. So for our engagement with our employees, one of the biggest concerns was obviously privacy and security. Fortunately, MyPass has that well covered. So there was a couple of hurdles, making sure everybody was informed on what the system provided and how it protected the data and how it was an elevation above what they were currently using. The employees are now responsible for managing their own certifications in the platform. So we create profiles for the employees, and then the employees can see all of the qualifications that need to be uploaded. Where it saved us a lot of time is that all of the industry qualifications now, they're verified by MyPass, which has saved us a lot of time. And certainly previously we had challenges ourselves with the fraudulent certifications. Required us to check those certifications against the database, and then even people just trying to circumnavigate that system as well. So having a professional company that's verifying those certificates is really, really important. For our coordinators and the people responsible for mobilizing on people on site, it's provided in that real-time view, certainly for things like code of ethics training, cybersecurity training, and our employee inductions. They're handled in a separate learning management system. So for our coordinators to be able to see, hey, are all the tickets in date? Are all of the qualifications right? Have they done our internal courses? We use it as a traffic light system now. If somebody's not 100% compliant to mobilize, then they don't mobilize. And there's repercussions if we mobilize people that aren't 100% ready for their roles.
Awesome, thanks very much. Throw to the room. Who wants to go first?
Hi, Phil Sunderland from the Asset Management College. Have you had the issue where a person's got the certificate and then when they get to the site, they demonstrate that maybe they're really not quite right, and so that puts the certificate, the validity of the certificate into question, or their ability to, or how they got it, or who ticked them off? Have you had issues like that where there's a disconnect between, oh yeah, I've got the certificate, but you find in the field they can't do the job, and is there a feedback to MyPass from that?
Yeah, so for us, that's prevalent. It's easy. For the industry that we work in, it's not a traineeship. It's not a university degree. It's not a college degree. So we have a lot of people that collect tickets, and then they aren't competent to go in the field. So we have quite a vigorous verification of competency program, and we've included those verification of competencies in the MyPass profile. So one of the interesting things I like about MyPass is the logic that you can place in for the position. So a person must have an eye test, they must have the industry qualification, and they must have that verification of competency. But 100%, with what you're saying, very good question. It is prevalent that just because you have the qualification doesn't mean you're good for the job. I think MyPass gives us the tools to be able to say, hey, we've actually checked that competence.
Yeah, that's a good question, Phil. I'll add to that by saying that trained is not the same as competent. Just because you got the cert, take forklift driving or whatever, I might have got it 10 years ago, or I might be really bad at it. So the way that the industry's kind of put a stopgap on that, and it's legislative driven in a lot of cases, is that verification of competency that Dan was talking about. What's exciting for me is that instead of all these sites doing that manually and redoing every time I turn up, I've got another crane driver VOC or whatever it is, through the Chamber of Minerals and Energy, they've got a program called Reshapes, and so they've standardised those now across 8 high-risk assessments, so crane driving, rigging, scaffolding, etc. And that has been endorsed by the likes of Shell, Chevron, Woodside, BHP, Rio and Alcoa. So that means you can do that once and move around. So done by an approved assessor to approved standard, and I think that's where, provided we can do that at an industry level so it's reusable and doesn't become an extra step in the chain, I think that's where that becomes powerful.
Anyone else?
Just one question for myself. Obviously, this seems like a fantastic tool for formal qualifications and formal training. How does it cater for other things where we have machine-specific tasks that someone needs to be deemed competent on? Can that sort of stuff be tracked in this application?
Yeah, so further to what Dan was saying, there's libraries of training and skills within the platform. So we lock down all the industry generic training, so first aid, working at heights, etc., so that people don't have to replicate those as metadata or fields. But then organisations can have their own library of training and certs. So sometimes it's company-specific top-ups, it could be inductions, and it could be task-specific and equipment-specific training. So as long as there's some evidence of attainment at the end of it, then it can be captured in the system as a digital record and therefore added to your skills matrices or competency profile or onboarding requirements. So yeah, you can bake whatever cake you like there.
Oh, fantastic.
And we use it as an example, our UAV pilots. We get the industry qualification, the REPL, to say that they can fly. But then we have all of the different types of UAVs that they can fly. So we do that internally and we create our own certificates. So then we say, yep, they can fly the M300 or the Ilios or all the different type of UAVs they can fly as well.
Hi, I was wondering if it also has the ability to manage site access and any time and attendance as well?
Yeah, so good question. What we've chosen to do is integrate for that. So for example, BHP at the Nickel West site, they've integrated it with a physical swipe card. So you've got that as a hold point at site access as well. There's lots of, I guess, different permutations of hardware and so forth that people have. And same with time and attendance. Where it becomes really interesting is not just uniquely tracking me as I clock in and clock out with my ID, my unique identifier in my pass. But when it comes not just to time and attendance, but invoicing and billing, to make sure that there's a one-to-one match for what you actually requested and what turned up. So I might have only asked for an electrician, but I'm getting billed for an E&I tech. And if I am getting billed for an E&I tech, do they have everything I expect them to have rather than a subset? So there's kind of two critical hold points there that we send into those systems to be able to reduce your actual labour bill. And I've heard data upwards of 10% of the maintenance spend getting saved by not overspending in those categories.
Anyone else? We have another 8 minutes. These guys have done very well. Yep.
I'm just curious with the amount of information that you have within your database, if something breaks on the site, do you have the ability to interrogate that database and say, okay, I need a specialist welder with specialist competency with some sort of specific welding? Can you use it to put together a response team for specialist maintenance activities without mobilising other people to site?
Yes, yeah, you can. So that dashboard that I had up earlier, I'll just bring it up. That's a zoomed out view. In here, that's a summary view, but there's also a search page with all the personnel listed. So you can either add any permutations or licenses and skills. And if you've used the platform to actually do that mobilisation, they'll already be grouped in a subgroup or a sub-pool on the platform. So you can say, right, for this crew that I know is on site at Alcoa or Woodside or wherever it may be, quickly search for, first aid responder ticket or helo ops or whatever it may be. And where I think it becomes really interesting, and a couple of our clients are starting to do this, is use that data to feed into their overall dashboards for a particular profile of who's on site for that very quick response there too, because what they might have been requested to come to site for might be different from what you actually need them to do with a change of duties on site. But I don't know if you've got any specific examples of that you want to share, Dan, where you guys have done that. Yeah.
So we often have a lot of multi-skilled technicians. So yeah, to be able to revisit and say, hey, these are the skill sets we have available and hash them back together again. So we've definitely used.
Cool, good question. Any others? Yep.
Keep the conversation going, why not?
So if we chose to use this system at a function, a certain department or a local system, can this integrate with a bigger system like SAP or SuccessFactors that the rest of the organization are using as part of their LMS system?
Yes, yeah, so we can integrate with any LMS. We've integrated with SAP SuccessFactors specifically for a couple of clients. So what a lot of companies make the mistake of is thinking an LMS, which is learning management system, is actually a competency management system, which is not. And so, yes, it delivers online training and so forth, but it falls well short in terms of that more sophisticated competency profile. So we see that as a nice partnership where that LMS record, they can be assigned a role within our system. It then says, hey, you need to complete this online course in the LMS. The individual can trigger that from their passport in their own time, deliver that course in the LMS, and then it sends a digital record into the platform, which therefore updates all your competency profiles and dashboards and so forth. So it's a nice closed loop there.
And so I lead a development team for our internal development, and one thing I really like about MyPass is it's got a really well documented library for you to be able to call those functions, to be able to connect different platforms, pull data out, and put data into the platform as well. So for us, manually downloading certificates from our learning management system is a nightmare. The ability to be able to integrate that just saves so much time, prevents duplication, prevents errors, and because we know it's coming from the learning management system, it's the truth. Whereas when you take it out and you have to put it back in again, it's maybe not so. But yeah, one thing I really admire about the MyPass platform is that API platform where everything's really well. It's a testing playground area where you can test all the functions as well. Really good.
Cool. So what I'll do is just remind you of the session tomorrow if you want to see more. Dan and I will also be at Speaker's Corner. There we go. Speaker's Corner, which is Southern Port, is it?
Southern Port's Speaker Corner at lunchtime, so if
Yep.
you'd want to have a deeper chat with
Yeah.
Matt or Daniel, you certainly can then. And I'd also like to remind everybody to update their evaluation forms on the Mainstream app as well, and give these guys some feedback on the presentation today. But over to you to close out then, Matt.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, like I said, come and check it out tomorrow. If you want to have a chat or bring any other colleagues that might be interested, we'll be there for the next main break, which is lunch, I guess.
Yeah, at lunchtime.
And you've
I
got
hope
to
you guys
walk
will
past
head
our
there.
booth to get there. So make sure you enter on the way through. We love giving away free stuff. I'm not taking it home. No one else is. So get yourself some headphones or a voucher. And we've got Jules and Iris at the back of the room there if you've got any questions too. So say hi to them. He's the better looking of the pair up on the screen there. But yeah, thank you. Thanks for your
Awesome.
time.
Thank you very much. We'll give you one more
Cheers.
round of applause.